May become the defining issue in Connecticut of 2019, transportation. Next on Face the State, if tolls come back to our state, where will they be? What will they look like? What about Bradley Airport? How will that grow? New bridges, new roads? We will discuss with Governor Lamont's brand new Transportation Commissioner, Joe Giuletti. Also with us for insight on the transportation problems, former Economic Development Commissioner Joe McGee. And reaction from lawmakers who have vastly different opinions on what should be done. Plus, our flashback, that time when tolls vanished. Some thought forever. It's all straight ahead this first Sunday of the month, March 3rd, 2019.
From Eyewitness News, Connecticut's most watched local political program, this is Face the State.
It is 8:30 on this Sunday morning, and good morning to you. I'm Dennis House. Thanks for joining us for Face the State. Tolls is a big issue in 2019 here in Connecticut. Transportation, of course, needs to be improved, and one of the ways to fund those improvements could be tolls. At least that's what the governor is saying. With us here to talk about that is Governor Lamont's new choice for DOT Commissioner. He is Joe Giuletti. We thank you for being here with us, Commissioner. Also with us today, Joe McGee. He is the former Commissioner of the Department of Economic Development under Governor Lowell Weicker. He is now the Vice President for the Fairfield County Business Council. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us here today. And I'll begin with you, Mr. Giuletti. As you took this over, Commissioner, what do you think of the transportation system in Connecticut compared to other states?
Definitely no better, and definitely in tremendous need of repair. We've got a lot of problems here. We've got a lot of traffic problems. We've got a lot of infrastructure problems. Our bridges have a very poor rating. Okay, they've got a better rating than some other states because of incidents that have happened in the past, but I'm walking into a situation that there is a tremendous amount of need for investment in the infrastructure here.
How bad is the congestion here?
Extremely bad, okay? People are constantly complaining. It used to be that they were complaining, and you brought it up about the tolls in the past, where they used to bottleneck because of that. Now it's a constant bottleneck, all right? Every place that we've been, Waterbury got a little bit better, but go to Hartford, watch it 91 and 84, go down to the west end of 95. You know, the good part about it is it leads a lot of people to going on to mass transportation, which is terrific, and that's where we need to be investing as well. But the bad part is that I don't care if you're on 84, 91, 95, they're all tremendously backed up.
Mr. McGee, you were a commissioner 25 years ago. Is the situation worse now than it was then? And what has created that worsening?
Well, partly growth, partly there's more truck traffic, but partly just the road system can't handle the volume. And we have been talking about this. Look, the Business Council of Fairfield County 35 years ago led the fight to get rid of tolls. The Business Council of Fairfield County now supports the re-establishment of tolls. And the fundamental reason is the traffic congestion and the failure to invest in rail has really affected economic growth. Our members, the number one issue, fiscal stability of the state's number one. Number two is transportation, by far, because getting people to work is critical. We can't grow in a state that is so difficult to get to work. It took me this morning, I had a 7:30 meeting this morning. I left Fairfield 18 miles away at 6:05, and I got there at 7:35. This is just not acceptable. And so companies are not going to grow the jobs we need, the volume of jobs, in a state with such a poor infrastructure.
There are some who say that tolls might slow things down a bit, and because it would also increase the cost that commuters now pay.
Well, let me first, and I want to jump on what Joe said for a second. Do you realize that these highways that we're talking about, I've been out with Governor Lamont the last week, and just going to 84 and going to Hartford and going over and looking at bridges that were designed in the 50s and 60s to carry 50,000 people in the future are carrying 175 and 180,000 a day going over those bridges. So now when you say to me the tolls are going to slow it down, sure, if we were putting in conventional toll booths, it would slow it down, but we're not. We're looking at the latest in technology. We're looking at gantries. We're looking at what the industry is going to, and we're also looking at it from the standpoint that we're one of the few states that doesn't have it here in the Northeast. So we're subsidizing all the other states, but in effect, we're not collecting the revenue for what needs to be done here.
If it was your decision solely, where would those well, how many gantries would we have, and where would they go?
We're looking at right now putting them on the major infrastructures, which is 91, 95, the 84. So as we're looking across doing that, we're looking at about 53 gantries, and they would be set up in a way that they would be seamless. You wouldn't notice them. You're going to go under them, and what it will do is it'll log in how many miles you're traveling on the highway, so that way there we can assess a fair ratio for that amount of travel that you're doing on the highway.
Do you think some folks will choose the Merritt Parkway and Wilbur Cross Parkways to avoid the tolls?
Merritt Parkway will have to go with, you cannot put in a congestion mitigation on 95 because
So
it would force
well.
people to go over there, so it would have to go on the Merritt Parkway. If I didn't say the Merritt Parkway, that's my error.
Let's talk about these bridges a bit, because you mentioned that they're over capacity right now.
Yep.
And this week, you and the governor were at the Gold Star Bridge, which
Yep.
was last redone 60 years ago, I believe, right?
Yep.
65 years ago. Is it unsafe, and is it in danger of collapse?
No, I'm not going to tell you that it's in danger of collapse. What it is that we're constantly putting bandages on that the same way we are on 84 in Hartford. I wasn't with the governor at the Gold Star Bridge, but it is the same issue at every one of the bridges right now. They're all at their lifespan. What we're doing right now is doing things to keep them going for another 15 or 20 years, but we haven't addressed the need problem.
One of the big stretches of highway that's going to need to be redone very, very soon, and you can both weigh in on this, whoever would like to take the question, is the Etna Viaduct through downtown Hartford. Needs to be redone. There's talk about a tunnel. There's talk about a hybrid tunnel. Mm-hmm. Which plan do you think is the best, and when will this get done?
Well, the Hartford Viaduct is not an area. I'm Fairfield County.
Okay, you want to take this, Commissioner?
Sure. I would defer.
I'll be happy to take it. I have looked at what the plans are. I've heard all of the discussions on it. Right now, what we have to be looking at, there's a NEPA process that you're required to go through that will turn around and say what are the best opportunities going forward and what can we do. The issue really becomes that what was a plan in the past to go put highways up on viaducts has now resulted in the splitting up of cities, the loss of access to the rivers, the loss of property. So it does deserve the look when you're going to make the investment for replacement. Should we not be looking at, did we do it right? Should we put it on the ground? Should we put it below the ground? Those are the studies that have to be done when you're looking to make this type of an investment going forward. So I'm going to tell you, it's wide open for discussion, and it's something that I'm sure the governor and the legislature are going to have a lot of discussions on. But from our end, we'll be looking at every one of the feasibilities in terms of what we can do there.
What efforts will be made to get more people to use rail, particularly in Fairfield County?
Well, that's the critical issue. I mean, investment in rail is critical. I mean, right now, we're not even at a state of good repair on the rail line. And that is really significant, just getting it up to a state of good repair so it runs at the speeds it should run at. State of good repair is supposed to run at 80, 90 miles an hour. I mean, we're running, no offense, you may say 60 miles an hour. I say it's more like maybe 35. This issue of rail is critical. To get people off the highway, you have to have an option that works. There's 40 million rides a year on the New Haven line. We have 4 bridges that are 100 years old. I mean, these have to be replaced. And then we just did a study. Over a 30-year period, the times have gotten longer, not shorter. So this system, we have more trains, but they're getting slower and slower. So we're pushing an agenda of 30 minutes, 30, 30, 30. 30 from Hartford to New Haven, 30 from New Haven to Stamford, 30 minutes from Stamford to New York. Now, this is aspirational. It's a goal.
How much will all that cost?
Well, I mean, long term, this thing is probably about $5 billion. But here's the thing we learned when we did this study. There's things you could do in the short run for $150 million to bring the system up to a state of good repair that could cut time from New Haven to New York by 24 minutes. So this is where we're focused. Yes, $5 billion is going to be required over a 10-year period. But in the interim, for relatively modest amounts of money, I think you can see dramatic improvement in the service level on the New Haven line. And that then allows you to get cars off 95.
There's also talk you can get cars off I-95 if more people in southern Connecticut, particularly Fairfield County, used Bradley Airport, which many say is an underused resource. And the drive from the town of Fairfield to LaGuardia is equidistant pretty much to Bradley, if not easier to go to Bradley. How do you get those people to use that airport?
Well, you know, and if you caught Joe throwing a shot at me, it's because he also came to see me when I was the president of Metro North. So we've had a lot of these discussions long before I took on this job as commissioner. You are right about Bradley. One of the things I'm also in this position, I get to sit on the board with the airport. I've already had a conversation with Kevin from the airport as to what do we do? How are we going to rationalize Bradley, Tweed, New Haven, Sikorsky, and how do we make the mass transit connectors there? Because you're right, we should be able to offer a seamless system that gets you into the airport. The modern airports, the new airports are all providing, when you get off that plane, you have all the modes of transportation sitting there. There is no reason we can't be looking at that at our airports, and not only, you know, for the people down in Fairfield County, but to track the market that's up into Massachusetts as well by offering them a mass transit solution that gets them into that airport.
Well, those who fly both airports on a regular basis always say Bradley's easier.
Yes,
than
and
LaGuardia, which is
I fly both.
one of the most delayed airports in the
Sometimes it's
nation.
pricing, though. I mean, to be candid, though, I can sometimes get a more frequent out of LaGuardia or JFK than I can Bradley.
So how do you get the
And
prices down to
and
Bradley?
There's a price issue.
How do you get those prices down?
because
Bradley?
what ends up driving those prices is the volume and the service that's there. So the more planes that you got there, the more the market is that it attracts. And I'm going to tell you, it's a candid discussion as well, because there's people that love the fact that Bradley is a nice small airport. But that nice small airport isn't going to meet the needs of the future, because it really needs to grow and it really needs to be competitive. And that's where the investment has to be, that it keeps it with that small flavor, but also has a great system that'll take you right in there.
There's also the talk, too, that people in Fairfield County view it as kind of far away because it's Hartford/Springfield on the monitors. And what's Bradley Airport? I know they're talking about a new name.
But this is the critical issue. This issue of the rail link of Hartford to New Haven to Stamford is so important because you're creating a new economic backbone, a seamless new economic transportation backbone that links Hartford to Stamford. This is really important, and it's very hard for people in Hartford to understand the importance of this, that you could live in Hartford and work in New Haven or Stamford, and an easy commute. This will change the state of Connecticut. It's an economic driver, probably the single largest economic driver that Connecticut could implement.
You know, this is all nice. You've talking a lot of numbers, a lot of nice ideas, but Connecticut sort of has a reputation of having two speeds, slow and stop. So 4 years, when the governor's completing his term, what actually will be done? How will Connecticut be different in terms of transportation?
Because in 4 years, though the governor is setting the mode for far beyond 4 years, what he's looking for is answers to what we can do now, all right? And in terms of what we can do now, you already heard Joe talking about the fact there are things we can do to reduce times now, make it quicker and more efficient now, and that's what you're going to see is he's looking for a way of not only funding that doesn't turn around and put all the debt into the future and onto our children and grandchildren, but a way that we've come up with the funding and a path that keeps showing that we're going to reduce those times going in. And to jump on Joe's for a second, it's not so much getting into the competition of LaGuardia, but you know how long it takes to go to LaGuardia. You said you've gone to LaGuardia. We're not going to, they need the overflow coming here. So it's not like we're competing against the New York market. We're expanding our market and an opportunity for people to get there quicker.
Gentlemen, we're out of time. I'll give you one last question. Commissioner, what kind of name do you favor for Bradley if they rename it?
Oh, no, that's not mine.
You're not going there?
I'm not
just
going
yet.
there, no.
Okay.
No.
Joe Giuletti and Joe McGee, we thank you so much for being on the program today.
Thank
When
you.
we come back, we will be discussing what really can be done. Will lawmakers approve tolls? We'll talk about that. And we'll also invite you to watch past editions of Face the State on our YouTube channel and on our app right now.